Hi there, this is Tom Lee. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Fundstrat Capital and the Portfolio Manager of the Fundstrat's U.S. Large Cap Granny Shots ETF. I'm sharing the update for the week of January 26th. First, with some data for you, the current price of the Granny Shots ETF, ticker GRNY, is $21.19. The NAV is $21.18, and total assets are $802 million. I wanted to address the sell-off in markets early this week. The S&P 500 closed Monday down 1.4%, the NASDAQ down 3%, and small caps down 1%. The reason for the sell-off principally is because DeepSeek released an AI model. DeepSeek is a Chinese-based AI company that actually trained the model for 3% of the cost of OpenAI. That is a huge, huge displacement of cost to train an AI model. And in fact, DeepSeek has quickly become the #1 most loaded app on the Apple App Store. What's interesting is the relative size of the DeepSeek model. For instance, on this side-by-side comparison, we can see that there's about 37 billion active parameters in any query compared to 405 billion for something like Llama, which is Facebook's open source model. And because it is 10% of the size of Llama, at 37 billion parameters, it could actually run on a desktop. Now, this compares to the AI efforts taking place in the US, where in fact the Trump administration announced a $500 billion AI partnership. So you could see the contrast here. And in fact, that's why over the weekend, Mark Andreessen, a well-known venture capitalist, called the DeepSeek R1 AI Sputnik moment. So on Monday, investors panicked. Nvidia was down 17%. Now, that is the 9th worst single-day decline Nvidia has seen since its IPO. And I've listed the other 8 instances. But the most important thing to highlight was that 3 of those instances, August 2004, August 2003, and March 2020, occurred when the S&P was not in a bear market or a recession. So those are the ones I think to compare to. And on this NVIDIA price chart since 2000, we've highlighted those vertical lines showing those 3 instances of the worst daily declines for NVIDIA. Here's what's interesting if you zoom in. These are the single day declines highlighted. And as you can see, those represented the bottom tick. So 3 of the last 3 times NVIDIA had a 15% or more single day decline, it was the bottom tick. This is one reason why, as you might wonder, what are we going to do with NVIDIA? I think NVIDIA is telling us we need to be buying this dip. Now, there's a sanity check, obviously, we have to ask ourselves, and this is what we're asking ourselves now. What is the impact of lower cost AI on businesses and stocks? How will demand for GPUs change? How is this going to affect demand for AI applications? How about AI spending plans generally? And American leadership, which we kind of assumed was really going to be a US AI lead. And then which companies benefit from these lower costs? These are the questions we're wrestling with as we evaluate not only our themes, but the stock selection as well. But I do think this is not entirely a surprise. Palantir's CTO had said in November that AI models are converging and pricing for inference is dropping like a rock. So he was suggesting that the value for AI is going to be in the application and workflow layers. And in fact, that's what happened on that same Monday because Apple and Meta actually rallied while Nvidia fell. And another open question we're going to have is, is this going to change the need for GPUs over time? I would assume that having GPUs improves the performance, so it shouldn't have an impact. Well, we're going to find out because this week, 4 of the Mag 7 are reporting: Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple. And so we're going to obviously tune in to hear what they have to say about demand for GPUs. Over the past week, the granny shots on a price basis rose 2.71%. On an NAV basis, 2.67%. That compares to the S&P rising 1.76%, or relative performance of over 90 basis points. This is the 1-week performance sorted best to worst, highlighted here. These are the granny shot themes, or what each of the stocks falls under. And here are the top 5 performers. It's Oracle, Netflix, Arista Networks, Eaton, and Quanta Services. But AI is more than just NVIDIA. This is a great graphic from Palantir. And as we highlight here, there are companies here involved with AI infrastructure in the granny shots, and companies involved with AI applications. These are the bottom 5 performers of the past week, including Progressive, Apple, Booking, Tesla, and Leidos Holdings. On a year-to-date basis, granny shots on a market basis is up 6%, NAV 6.09%. This is through January 24th. S&P is up 3.8%, so the relative performance is over 200 basis points. And since inception, granny shots is up 5.95%, NAV basis 5.88%. That compares to 3% for the S&P, so relative performance of 265 basis points. There are some key events to watch this week. Really, it's earnings. But in the middle of that, on Wednesday, is going to be the January FOMC January rate decision that will have an effect on all stocks. So we're watching that very closely as well. Now, if you're wondering what granny shots are, because you're tuning in for the first time, it refers to an unconventional way to do a basketball free throw, underhanded. Shaquille O'Neal represents what is typical overhanded, but the success rate is quite low in the 50% range. But if you do a granny shot, the success rate is around 90%. And that was really employed by Rick Barry, an NBA Hall of Famer. Our granny shots model works by looking at long-term themes like millennials, global labor shortage and AI, energy security or easing financial conditions, as well as tactical themes like style, tilt, and seasonality. And then we identify stocks that are in multiple themes. And the more themes you are, of course, the more likely you are a granny shot. So we're highlighting here that the biggest granny shots are things like Meta, Global, Garmin, Grainger, Caterpillar, etc. You can find more information on the fact sheet, and that is available on our website, grannyshots.com. And this is the investment team. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you soon.